This video is made possible by Glasswire. Glasswire is advanced firewall software available today on Windows and soon OS X at glasswire.com. Glasswire monitors your network by traffic type, application, and location. The activity graph, which also acts as a timeline to events, gives you all of your network activities in a visually appealing and easy to read format. Discrete notifications are used on the activity graph whenever you have a new connection, sudden peak in bandwidth, possible threats, and much more. You can monitor it this way, or you can go under the alert tab. Glasswire's free version is very powerful on its own, but the paid version has a cool connect feature that allows you to accept or deny connections. Monitor your data being used, protect your network, and look classy doing it with Glasswire. Atomos recently updated their Shogun and Assassin lineup with the Flame series, and I have to say it's definitely a lovely update. With the original Shogun still selling for about $1,500 more or less, the Flame costing $1,700 is really a no-brainer if you have that $200 extra lying around. The box is all too familiar, having the same Pelican case style enclosure, except this time around comes in yellow right off the bat, whereas the yellow casing for Gen 1 was offered later on down the road. Inside the box, you're going to find a control cable, XLR breakout cable, which has been redone slightly, 2 NPF 750 batteries, a fast battery charger, which Atomos claims is 3 times faster than conventional chargers, and a USB 3 docking station, which I found has been improved for better connections. But this is based off of the first generation and first shipments of that generation and could have changed with later shipments. You also get two 12-volt AC-DC cables and a coiled D-tap to DC power cable, which is an awesome addition considering the previous generation included the battery but no cable. The Shogun Flame has definitely improved the Shogun design language as a whole. Sporting a new rugged-like design, it's not only beefed up, but it also adds a little bit more weight. I could have done without both of these though because the original Shogun was already massive. The Flame series maintains the ABS polycarbonate build, but it's sturdier and more solid for sure. To add some shock absorption properties, it features beefed up rubber corners, since that's the area that generally hits first when you drop it. The ports and button placements are very similar outside of the removal of the locking power input from the side and is now positioned on the back. I never really used it on the first gen, so it doesn't mean too much to me, but as a professional, I can see how this could be a nuisance. But before we get to the backside, I want to mention the power button has been drastically improved and no longer feels cheap and flimsy. It's actually very sturdy and solid now. The backside has been completely remodeled and is a billion times better now. The original Shogun was the Galaxy S6 of external recorders when it came to battery life, meaning that it was horrible. Well, Atomos did listen and they came back and they fixed the issue. Not only is the new Shogun more conservative on battery life, but they added an additional slot. Using the batteries that came with it, you can expect around 1.5 to 2 hours of monitoring and recording 4K, and that's quite a step up from the first version. The SSD slot has also changed, and instead of being completely exposed, has a covering over the connectors now for added protection. But like I said, all this comes at a cost when you consider the weight. The original Shogun weighed 1 pound without a hard drive or battery, whereas the Flame comes in at 1.4 pounds completely naked. If you take a look at this picture from the No Film School website, because I don't have the original Shogun on hand anymore, you can see the overall size difference, and this doesn't even mention the overall thickness of the Shogun versus the Flame. So you can see there's quite a bit of a difference, and it's definitely a factor to take into consideration before you purchase this. And just for the heck of it, here's the Shogun Flame next to the Pixie E5H and the small HD 501, and you can see the size is completely comical. The display of the Shogun has also changed for the better with the Flame. It's still a 7-inch 1920 by 1200 display, and the actual display glass still doesn't compete with the Gorilla Glass found on the Pix E series, but the display quality is absolutely breathtaking. It's a 10-bit display with HDR technology, giving you true-to-life colors and the most accurate color representation I have ever seen when you're doing log to Rec 709 imaging. For reference, a typical 8-bit monitor such as the original Shogun or Assassin produces 16.7 million colors. The Flame, because of the 10-bit processing, can produce close to 1.1 billion colors. That's insane. It comes pre-calibrated out of the box, but you'll need to get the Atomos Spider by X-Rite to maintain that calibration in the future for the most accurate color reproduction. Another added feature is the ability to shoot up to 1500 nit on the brightness scale, bringing another fix to all the gripes about the first gen's terrible outside visibility. The Flame features all the standard features we love from the Shogun, including your in and out settings, scopes, peaking, zebras, etc. So I'm not going going to go over that since that would be kind of repetitious. The main focus here is under your display settings titled AtomHDR, which will be coming to the first gen if it isn't already available at the time of this video. The only thing about that is you're not going to get the ability to see it like you can with the Flame series because of the 10-bit versus 8-bit display. But before we dive into HDR, you still have your native source settings, a log to video setting, which is new to me because it's been a while since I used the first gen, if it even exists on there. You can pick your camera make, select your gamma, and then adjust your gamut. Lastly, you can add in your custom LUTs to be baked in or just as a preview, another feature that was carried over from the original Shogun. So let's talk about AtomHDR. You set this mode up just like you would log the video, and then you adjust the brightness based upon your viewing environment. So for instance, if I'm shooting inside, I can adjust the brightness on the lower end, whereas if I'm outside, it's going to be significantly higher. The purpose behind AtomHDR is to take a log image and then display it in HDR for a preview of what you're shooting, so that way you can see the potential dynamic range being held in the shot for easier editing in post. More so, the Flame series features something Atomos calls AtomHDR Engine, which utilizes the power of the 1500 nit panel in conjunction with the new processing engine to give you a better and easier workflow in post when delivering or mastering HDR. There are two modes for monitoring your display, HDR and SDR. Switching between these two when shooting will allow you to view the standard dynamic range, which will be slightly underexposed when compared to the high dynamic range image. All of this does nothing to the log image, so you don't have to worry about anything being burnt in or anything like that. It's just a live preview and monitor solution to aid you in post. However, one thing to keep in mind is that AtomHDR does not work in high bright modes, so if you're outside and need to shoot in HDR and you need that very bright panel, you're going to need the sun hood, which is why they've included it. However, it's definitely not the greatest contraption ever created. The sun hood consists of 5 pieces and 2 screws. Initial setup was a pain in the butt since they don't include instructions on how to assemble it in the box, at least mine didn't, and it's different from the first gen sun hood. Start by fitting this small flat piece with a square cutout on the display, and then fit the piece that resembles a mini sun hood around the front side of the Flame, and then line up the cutouts at the top and bottom with the threaded holes on the Flame and screw in the 2 thumb screws that came included. Next, fit the large part of the sun hood inside the smaller section like you see in the video. Just make sure that you don't try to fit it around the outside of the smaller section, as you will cause the seams to tear on the larger section. The best advice is to make sure you take your time. It might take some wiggling and finagling, but it will fit. Finally, take the other flat piece that has the large flaps on the side of it, and then fit it over the large cutout at the top of the piece that you just attached. The side flaps are magnetic and should stick immediately whenever you get it in the correct place. As a sun hood, it works really good. It blocks out all the light around you and lets you see your image perfectly so you can get your focus and exposure every single time. The issues I have are simply A, the size of it, and then the assembly time. For professionals, it's completely okay, I get it, but for someone like me, it just doesn't make sense and it's more of a hassle than what it's worth. Luckily though, if you leave the smaller portion installed, it's easier and less time consuming, plus acts as a mini sun hood. One thing I loved about the Video Devices Pixie series were the hardware buttons. With the sun hood applied to the Shogun Flame, hard keys would have been a perfect solution instead of having to reach under the sun hood and through the elastic fabric to reach in and use the touchscreen. The problem I had was that the elastic became overly stretched and no longer maintained a tight fit. Plus, if your hands were dirty or greasy, you're going to dirty up the display and you can't easily wipe it down. I know a lot of people love the big 7-inch displays, but for me, a 5-inch display is much better. That's the reason why I prefer using the Pixie E5 or E5H. It's just more portable and it still allows me to see much more than I can with the built-in display on my camera. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because the size and the weight factor is what really brings me down from the Shogun Flame. If they were to put out a 5-inch model, I believe they would kill it for sure, and I would definitely upgrade to that. Anyways guys, that does it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like it if you did. If you didn't, still like it because you're awesome. Subscribe so you don't miss any future content. Go ahead and follow me on all my social media sites, and of course, I'll talk to you in the next one. Be easy.